Hello, dear friends. Gordon Turnbull at John Knox. As we start a new day and a new week, I'd love to give you a word for your adoration of God. And it comes from the Psalms, a few different places, but I'm reading from Psalm 103, verse 8. It goes like this: The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. That phrase or sentence actually is a complex, a formula that became a part of Israel's worship life. That's why it's in different places in the Old Testament. That's evidence that people used it again and again. It became part of the language, the vocabulary of their understanding of God. And I find it so meaningful to think about what Israel was describing about God when they came up with that way of thinking. That God is merciful, meaning that part of God's essential identity is compassion, not vengefulness, not anger, not arbitrariness, but just a compassion, a wise understanding of our needs, and a desire to reach out mercifully to attend to us. God is merciful and gracious, that there is a generosity in God's love for us. God deals with us in a free fashion. It's not conditioned by our good behavior or by our deserving, which is good news for us because we're not deserving of God's grace, right? But God is gracious to us and generous in the essence of God's being, and that issues forth into the actions that God has towards us. God is merciful and gracious, slow to anger. Isn't that good news? That God is slow to anger, that the first thing about God is not a quick action in response to our misdeeds, but that God reserves that judgment that's appropriate for us, but God doesn't express it immediately, but gives us plenty of time and plenty of space, and awaits our transformation so that we can get into the right relation, discover the righteousness that God wants us to discover. God is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. Abounding. There's just no end to the steadfast love that God has for us. We don't exhaust that love. We don't get on God's last nerve. God doesn't have a last nerve. God's always looking at us with love. And that love is steadfast. It's sure. It's secure. It's not changeable. It's conditioned by the promise of God's eternal care for us. We don't have to worry about whether God will change the divine mind about us. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. Isn't that a beautiful way to adore the living God? I hope knowing those qualities of God helps you today to enjoy and experience that love. Go in the grace of God and have a wonderful day.